Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a very exciting announcement here at the University of Utah. This week, the University of Utah and the Idaho National Laboratory signed a Strategic Understanding for Premier Education and Research, or SUPER agreement, that will facilitate research collaborations between our two institutions. I'm here with Dr. Marianne Walk, the Deputy Laboratory Director for Science and Technology at the Idaho National Laboratory, and Dr. Richard Brown, the H.E. Thomas Presidential Endowed Dean for the College of Engineering at the University of Utah. So thank you all so much for joining us. The Idaho National Laboratory is one of only 17 national laboratories across the United States owned by the Department of Energy. It's a research and technology powerhouse and describes itself as the nation's command center for advanced nuclear energy development and deployment. And thank you all so much for joining us. So can you all tell me how this super agreement came about?
We've been working together on research and development in a number of areas for a number of years. And INL, or Idaho National Laboratory, has been working to design some of these so-called super agreements to help us get relationships with our national laboratory and select universities, only a few, to a higher strategic level where we have great connections at a number of different levels, from professor through dean and up through vice president of research, and even to the president of research, president of the university, with our leadership at the laboratory that will enable us to do more and better things in the future.
From the University of Utah's point of view, our discussions about having a relationship with a national lab started 4 years ago when one of our trustees, Steve Price, became very interested in having some kind of a national lab involvement with the state of Utah. And as Marianne said, there have been a number of interactions between the University of Utah and Idaho National Labs, but some important touch points were when some of us visited INL in September of 2018. I won't mention all of the interactions we've had, but it's been a wonderful opportunity for us to get to know each other. And we're just delighted that this super agreement has now been signed.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, maybe Dr. Walk, you can tell us, why did you decide to make it this agreement with the University of Utah?
Well, I think that Dr. Brown talked a lot about some of the elements here. University of Utah is the closest R1 university to INL, and the partnership with the state of Utah is very important to us. We certainly have great connections with our universities in Idaho and other surrounding states, but we can't ignore all the wonderful resources, intellectual resources we have down in Salt Lake City, which is only 3 hours to the south of us. So it just makes all kinds of sense. And we have a variety of different areas that we work together in. Cybersecurity is a key one, but also nuclear energy, renewable energy, advanced manufacturing, and other areas. So it's a great match.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a couple of the potential research areas, but could you expand on how the University of Utah and INL have collaborated in the past?
Well, we actually have an INL office down there on wireless security at the university. And we have had a number of different co-funded projects or joint projects with the University of Utah. We have hired a number of University of Utah graduates. Some of the areas that we'd like to expand in are more student interns from the university at INL, primarily in the summertime, but we can also do year-round interns, and more postdoctoral appointees, and also joint appointments are other areas where we can expand for the future.
Maybe I could add something to this, Lisa.
Yeah.
I surveyed our faculty when we were arranging for a visit from some of the leadership from INL, and found that we have 18 faculty members who say they have current research relationships with INL. And 91 other faculty members told me that they would be interested in collaborating with INL. So we've had some wonderful examples of projects in the past. Dr. Walk mentioned that there is a small office here in our research park. That's the result of a collaboration between Behrooz Farhang from our ECE department and Hussein Maradi at INL. I noticed looking at Behrooz's CV that they have 25 joint publications. And I can tell you that that laboratory that exists here in our research park is because INL was interested in hiring some of the PhD graduates from this joint research. And that's what's going on in that office, which is on University of Utah property.
Right. So there's sort of been these, organic sort of individual partnerships that INL and certain faculty from the U have made themselves. So what is the benefit of having this official super agreement? Does that make it easier for future collaborations?
Well, that is the hope, certainly. I think we already have some contractual agreements in place with University of Utah. And so once we have one of these master contracts, it's not too difficult, I think, to provide funding, to the university to help us with research. But I think the idea of creating a visible strategic partnership with administration, deans, and others very visibly involved promoting these types of interactions is something that will just help take it to the next level.
Yeah. And so with this collaboration, what do you see as one of the biggest advantages that this agreement will have for INL and INL researchers?
Access, I would say, to the great minds you have at the University of Utah, opportunity to partner on joint proposals to different types of funding vehicles for both institutions, and just a great exchange of ideas that will help us advance our missions, both in energy and in cybersecurity.
Yeah. Dr. Brown, what do you see as the main advantages for University of Utah researchers?
Well, from our point of view, INL has some spectacular researchers, and they have fabulous equipment and facilities. And there are many cases in which our research can be better if we have a partner like INL. So this new agreement that we have will give us kind of a most favored nation relationship with INL. It's often beneficial for us to have partners in the research. When we write proposals, if we have a national lab partner, I think that makes our proposals much stronger. And as Dr. Walk mentioned, there are many areas in which we have common interests. And this is evident from the number of active projects we have going on now, but there are a number of other areas where we'll also be able to collaborate. Another advantage for the University of Utah is that INL has told us they'll be willing to sponsor clearances for our faculty and students with this agreement in place. And that will make it so that our graduates could go to work immediately for INL or some other national lab and wouldn't have to wait for a clearance to be processed before they could start working inside the fence, as they say. Another thing that I'm very interested in is the prospect of our being able to do classified research. We're planning a new building now, and an important part of that building will be a SCIF, which is a facility in which classified research can be done. And if we can get the building and the SCIF in place, that will enable us to do a lot more things with INL and other partners like them that we haven't been able to do in the past.
Absolutely true. And I'll just amplify the interest in having the ability to have partners on research collaboration proposals for the Department of Energy, as well as for, say, the National Science Foundation. It's becoming the norm to have multi-institutional teams for some of these larger efforts. And so when you have pre-formed partnerships, it makes it much easier to respond to these calls for proposals with strong teams and add additional partners, and then move forward with those efforts. So it's great to have these types of agreements in place for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even the discussions leading up to this agreement have helped us to get better acquainted with each other. In October, there was a delegation of 12 of us from the University of Utah who visited INL, including our president, Taylor Randall. In December, there was a delegation from INL that came to the University of Utah, and we had 25 short presentations from faculty members who were doing research in the areas that INL had identified as being of interest to them. And on March 8th, another group's going from the U up to INL, and INL's planning another trip to the University of Utah probably in April. So just getting to know each other better is really helping us to get to the point that we can effectively do more collaborative research.
Yeah, that's extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did touch on this, but could either of you go into a little bit more detail in terms of what are some of those promising research areas that have either been illuminated through these visits and discussions, or some that you're thinking about and excited to start on?
Okay, I am delighted to mention some of those. As the leadership of INL gave us a list of their topics of interest, we saw many of these that we have activity going on at the University of Utah. As you know, INL is a very important laboratory in terms of nuclear energy research, with a focus ranging from small modular reactors to microreactors. INL has responsibility for cybersecurity and process control. They have lots of activity in clean energy and are very interested in material science issues. We have projects with them now that are focused on nuclear medicine, and I think nuclear forensics is a very promising area for us to collaborate. Energy security is important. We have faculty members doing research on the smart grid and security of the electrical grid and other power systems and industrial control, and these are strengths of INL. They're even interested in water security and hydrogen as a fuel, and they have a wonderful laboratory for battery technology, and we have a number of faculty members working in advanced battery technologies. So there are many areas in which we're going to be able to collaborate. I think it's a very natural relationship for us.
Can maybe Dr. Walt, can you address how can an agreement like this impact, beyond the University of Utah into Utah's economy?
Well, there are clearly a lot of opportunities to create companies and firms that work in clean energy technology space.
Mm-hmm.
There's just all kinds of opportunities here. So one of the things that we do as a national laboratory is try to bridge the gap between some of the more fundamental research that universities often do and the industrial sector. And so we view our purview in the technology readiness level space as being sort of in the middle. And so we can help that. Clearly, we have what we call technology transfer executives and industrial partnership executives as well. I'm sure the university has those also, but we can work together to help, with develop intellectual property, make sure that it gets into the hands of the right people in the right way so that they can form companies and go out and create jobs for people in Utah and also in Idaho for that matter. And we have a lot of, I think Dr. Brown mentioned pretty much almost all of the the breadth of the things that we do at INL. So the topics that he just described capture the vast majority of the things that we do, in fact. And I would say the one area I didn't hear him mention is place we are already collaborating with the University of Utah, and that's geothermal energy, just another clean energy source. We do have a funded project from the Department of Energy that I believe Utah is actually leading in geothermal that we're a part of. So it even goes even a little teeny bit broader than all those various technologies that he mentioned. Another thing we do, which I'm sure Utah also has some interest in, is in biomass and biofuels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I can just mention, since we signed this agreement just over, 2 weeks ago, one of my faculty members, Kevin Whitty, who's my associate dean, has been working with Lynn Wendt and others in your bioenergy research lab. And this is a great example of a partnership. INL has some wonderful technologies for sorting biomass and preparing it, but they kind of stop there. But Kevin's technology is focused on gasification of biomass fuels, which is the next step. So we find places where we fit together in a very complementary way. Tara Mastron, one of our young faculty members in the nuclear engineering program, has just got a new project with INL on isotope production, which will be done in our trigger reactor. The University of Utah is one of only 13 universities, last time I checked, that has a trigger teaching reactor. And we've just recently made some changes. We're actually just finishing those up so that we can operate this reactor for longer periods of time. So it'll be practical to develop these isotopes that can be used in the treatment of cancer and Alzheimer's disease. So there are many opportunities for us to work together. Dr. Walk mentioned the commercialization aspect. I think this is really a very promising area. A few years ago, Southern California think tank, the Milken Institute, did a survey of all of the universities in North America to see which universities were best at commercializing research results. And we were happy that they concluded that the University of Utah was #1. So I think there will be opportunities for us to work with INL and help INL, which generates a huge amount of valuable intellectual property, because the University of Utah does have a very vibrant entrepreneurial climate, and hopefully we'll be able to partner on some efforts along those lines as well.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Is there anything that we haven't touched on about this super agreement that you would want to expand on?
The University of Utah produces 46% of all of the BS, MS, and PhD computing graduates from the Utah system of higher education. And I think that this new building, which is going to enable us to double the number of graduates in computer science, software development, computing, and computer engineering, is really important to the long-term viability of Utah's tech economy. So we're delighted with the connection to INL and looking forward to a very bright future as partners.
We're also looking forward to having the opportunity to employ University of Utah graduates, certainly in computer science, but also in other areas, specifically, engineering and science areas. We have about 5,300 employees at INL right now, and many of them are retirement eligible, and we are expecting to grow as well. So we are expecting to hire a large number of people over the next 5 years. And right now we only have, I believe, about 75 employees who have degrees from University of Utah. I would expect that in the coming years, as this super agreement is fully instantiated in the cultures of the two institutions, that we would significantly increase that number.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Thank you all so much for spending your time and talking a little bit more about the super agreement. And I'm so excited to see what comes out of it in the next 5 years and beyond. Thank you all so much.